Hello everyone. Welcome to the .NET on Azure Container Apps for Beginner session. I'm Justin and this is my friend.
Frank, that's my name. So, Justin, in the previous video, we learned a lot about Azure Container Apps. And the last one was about monitoring, making sure everything is running fine and things like that. What now? What's left to learn?
So we walked through all the steps from monolith application to microservice and the deployment, cost optimization and monitoring. But to me, it's all tricky to take care of everything. Um, so if I want to look after all the kind of apps, including orchestration, monitoring, deployment in just one go, what will be the best option?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So let me introduce the .NET Aspire. It orchestrates old microservice applications, adds monitoring capabilities, and deploys them to the Azure Container Apps with just one command.
Love that.
That's right. Now, while we are using .NET Aspire to orchestrate all the microservice applications, let's replace the SQLite database into PostgreSQL, which is basically a container.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is basically the code base. So I'm just opening .NET Aspire. So we don't have any of the bicep files for now. Now I'm opening here. So as you can see, there is product API, there is store web application, and there's store info, the API application. But
Yeah.
in addition to that, we have app host project and service default project. So I'm not going into too much details here, but let's open the program.cs file on app host project. That's the most important one, which orchestrate all the applications within .NET Aspire.
Justin, that looks, if I remember the previous episode, that looks a little bit like a Docker Compose file, right?
That's correct. That's correct. So we have PostgreSQL database,
Mm-hmm.
and in here we create database called ProductDB and StoreInfoDB. And these two database is connected into Product API and Store API respectively, like this, with reference information. And then finally, with this Product API and Store Info API is connected to the Store web front application with reference like this. And the good thing is that this is the good thing. Please, you might be remember that in the chapter 4 microservice application, we hide the product API application from the public facing through Azure portal. Now we define this method only for the store front-end application.
So
Because of that,
by default, they don't have external endpoint,
that's
and now
correct.
by specifying, so now store have it. So just
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. I like
For
it.
the
Instead of having to learn the YAML, the Docker stuff to do it in C#,
that's correct.
I like that.
Yeah. So product API and store info API is not exposed to public facing anymore. But store application with this method explicitly the saying this is exposed to the public, then only this application will be exposed. So this is all the orchestration stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the waiting for store info, it
Mhm.
just tells the store to wait that the APIs are ready before starting in case there's some check or something like that.
That's correct. So when I run this application and I simply the run azd up command, then it goes into the Azure Container Apps on the Azure portal. So I deployed this application already into the Azure portal. So let's go into there. So there are the applications. So remember that we used to have in the microservice this structure. We used to have product API, store application, and store info API. Now we have another one, PG, which means PostgreSQL database. So let's click that. And this is the one the having this endpoint. Can you see the internal, which is not exposed to the public, and because this is a just database application, so we cannot access through this application through the HTTP protocol. Now let's go back to the product API, and you will be able to see the internal here, which means it's not exposed to the public.
Like that. By default, it's secure because there's no external expose.
No.
So I'm guessing now the store
Yep.
have like a public, and we want that since it's the website.
That's correct.
Yes.
So can you see that store that there's no internal stuff?
Yes.
Mm,
It's better that way so people can reach our website.
that's correct. So if I click this application like this, so we can simply the same the application up and running and click our stores. It sees that it automatically sees applications, something like that. So even if we are exposing only the store front-end application, that application is still able to access to the backend API. But we, from the external user, we are not able to access to the product API or store info API any longer.
I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, this is how the application is orchestrated by .NET Aspire. But there are, if you really want to understand how that really works, then we have the step-by-step instruction on our GitHub repository. So please look at those step-by-step instruction.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all that, and definitely interested to learn more. Just do what it says.
Yes.
Go check that GitHub repo.
Yeah.
Go. Now it's time.
Yes. This is the end of the .NET Aspire for Beginners series. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.